there's a place that was never supposed to exist, a patch of land that appeared on maps, in atlases, and in the minds of explorers. And then one day, it was gone. No sinking, no explosion, no catastrophe, just erased. They called it Sandy Island. A small speck in the South Pacific, somewhere between Australia and New Caledonia. A remote stretch of ocean where no one goes unless they're trying to leave the world behind. For over a century, this phantom island lived a quiet life on the edges of human imagination. It was charted, named, catalogued, and passed down from map to map like a secret no one had ever verified, until someone finally went looking. So it was back in 2012, aboard the Australian research vessel Southern Surveyor. A team of scientists was out there, studying the seabed, mapping, the hidden contours of the ocean floor. Their charts, their data, and their GPS coordinates, well, they all pointed to a simple truth. They were, without a doubt, approaching land. But when they arrived, there was nothing. No island, no sandbar, just open ocean thousands of meters deep. And in that moment, they realized something strange. The island didn't sink. It never existed in the first place. But how could an entire island, a named island, appear on maps for more than 100 years without anyone seeing it? The answer begins long before satellites and GPS, back when the world was still drawn by hand and belief. In the 19th century, cartography was equal parts science and storytelling. Sailors returned from months at sea with journals filled with stars, coordinates, and sketches of places they thought they saw. Sometimes it was real, a volcanic ridge, a reef. Other times it was a mirage, a trick of light and longing on the horizon. And sometimes even the most fragile rumor could become fact, if the right person wrote it down. Sandy Island first appeared in 1908, charted by the British whaling ship Velocity. The crew claimed they'd seen land there, dark shapes on the water. They marked the coordinates, reported it, and moved on. But, their note found its way into the New Zealand Nautical Almanac, and from there into the World Vector Shoreline Database, and eventually Google Earth. By the 21st century, Sandy Island was no longer a rumor. It was a data point, official, confirmed, replicated in the digital realm, even though, oddly enough, no satellite image had ever shown it. When the Southern Surveyor returned with the news, Sandy Island doesn't exist, the world laughed. It was the kind of story that, honestly, just felt too absurd to be true. Scientists discovering that the world's maps had actually been wrong for, a century. Google quietly deleted it from their systems. Atlases were updated, and, in just a few keystrokes, an island that had lived for generations simply vanished from reality. But the disappearance of Sandy Island isn't really about just one mistake. It's about the thin line between what we know and what we believe we know. Maps have always been mirrors of human certainty. They tell us where we are, but also what we think we understand about the world. In the age of satellites, we like to imagine everything has been measured, photographed, archived, every inch of Earth accounted for. But Sandy Island reminds us that even our digital world rests on stories that were once told by human hands. Each map, each dataset, is a chain of trust, stretching back through generations. And you know, when one link is wrong, the error doesn't just stay there. It multiplies. It becomes truth by repetition. In that sense, Sandy Island is less a glitch in geography and more a reflection of us, our faith in our own information. There's a haunting beauty in that idea, that somewhere in the vast ocean, coordinates exist where reality and imagination overlap, a place that's real only because we said it was. It's a reminder that even in a world obsessed with data, there's still room for ghosts. Some scientists now suspect Sandy Island may have been a misreading of underwater volcanic rock, fragments of the Chesterfield Plateau just below the surface. Others say it was simply a mirage, a trick of sun and wave. But the truth is, no one really knows. And maybe that's the point. For all our satellites and sensors, the ocean still keeps its secrets. What's fascinating is how the disappearance of one tiny island rippled far beyond geography. In classrooms, it became a parable about scientific verification, the danger of copying data without questioning it. For historians, it became a story about how myths endure. And for storytellers, it became something else entirely, a symbol of how fragile reality can be. Because sometimes what we erase says more about us than what we record. Maybe Sandy Island never existed, but for a while it did, in our collective imagination. It lived on maps, in systems, in the minds of sailors and students. And maybe that's all any place needs to be: real belief. When the researchers deleted Sandy Island from the world's databases, they thought they were correcting an error. But in a way, they also killed something, a century-old dream that had quietly survived in the margins of human discovery. There's a loneliness to that, a sadness that something can vanish so completely, not because it eroded or burned, but because we stopped believing in it. The island that disappeared wasn't a place, it was a story, and when the story ended, the island went with it. But maybe, just maybe, there's still a point in the Pacific where the sea swells slightly higher, where the compass drifts for a second, and the horizon wavers, as if the ghost of Sandy Island still lingers, daring us to look again. Because even in a mapped world, the unknown isn't gone. It's just waiting for us to notice. This was the island that disappeared. If you found yourself wondering what else we've forgotten, you might just be ready for the next story. In the remote South Pacific, there was once a place called Aurora, a tiny, jeweled island, hidden far from any other land. Sailors and storytellers spoke of it in hushed tones, a destination for only the bravest navigators. Reaching Aurora meant weeks at sea, battling unpredictable waters that guarded its wild shores. Its isolation preserved a world untouched by humans, a living laboratory where nature thrived in secrecy. The island rose from the ocean with dramatic volcanic cliffs, waterfalls plunging into the sea, and a mist that shrouded its base. This was no gentle paradise, but a rugged, awe-inspiring wilderness. Early explorers described stepping into another era. No roads, no buildings, just the sounds of unknown birds and giant insects. At its heart stood Mount Silas, a dormant volcano crowned with clouds, dominating the 10-mile-wide island. Aurora was alive, powerful and breathtaking, a lost world waiting to be discovered. But its remoteness, which made it so special, also made it vulnerable. Imagine sailing for weeks, then catching the scent of strange flowers before the island, even appeared on the horizon. The first glimpse was unforgettable. Green rising from blue, cliffs and waterfalls, a spectacle of nature's raw power. Aurora demanded respect from all who approached. It was a place of beauty and danger, a final frontier of wilderness. Yet, as history would show, even the most isolated wonders are not immune to fate. Aurora was a biological marvel, famous for its bioluminescent forests. At night, a unique fungus, Noctiluca arboris, bathed the island in a blue-green glow, making the landscape shimmer like a living constellation. Creatures evolved to thrive in this twilight: moths with glowing wings, big-eyed mammals, and streams that sparkled with disturbed minerals. Along the eastern shore, singing stones hummed in the wind, creating a haunting melody that echoed across the island. Mount Silas, the dormant volcano, nourished the land with rich soil and a crystal-clear crater lake. The island's ecosystem was perfectly balanced: glowing forests, musical stones, and life-giving water. Aurora was a masterpiece of evolution, a place where every element was intertwined. Its wonders were found nowhere else on Earth. This delicate harmony made Aurora both extraordinary and irreplaceable. Aurora's legends began with Polynesian navigators, who called it Te Whenua o Te Marama, the land of the moon glow. They believed guardian spirits, the light eaters, protected the island's sacred glow, punishing those who disrespected nature. Later, sailors told of ghost ships and siren songs luring the unwary to their doom. The most enduring myth spoke of a crystal heart of the island, source of all light and life, hidden in Mount Silas's crater lake. If disturbed, the legend warned, the island's magic would vanish and disaster would follow. These stories, once dismissed as folklore, would prove hauntingly prescient. Trouble began quietly. In the late 2010s, the research vessel Oceanic Sentinel returned to Aurora, expecting the familiar hum of the singing stones. Instead, there was only silence. The water was murky, reefs were pale and dying, and the once glowing forests were dimming. Drone footage revealed vast patches of darkness where the bioluminescent fungus had died. Nearly a third of the forest had lost its light. The island's unique ecosystem was unraveling. The crew realized they were witnessing the beginning of the end. The silence of the stones, the fading glow, and the dying reefs were all warnings. Something fundamental had changed. The Oceanic Sentinel left with a sense of dread, their data logs full of troubling signs. The world's scientists took notice, preparing for a larger investigation, but no one could have predicted what would come next. Aurora's final chapter was about to begin. The island's fate was sealed by forces no one could control. Months later, Project Lifelight returned to Aurora's coordinates, hoping for recovery. But the island was gone. No cliffs, no forests, just endless ocean. The GPS was correct. The landmass had vanished without a trace. Drones and sonar found only empty sea. The shock was total. An entire island erased from the map. Scientists searched for answers, scanning the seabed for any sign of Aurora. The mystery of its sickness was replaced by the greater mystery of its disappearance. The world was left stunned by the vanishing of the Whispering Isle. Sonar revealed a massive depression where Aurora once stood. A catastrophic flank collapse had occurred. Years of erosion had weakened the volcanic island's base. A tropical storm delivered the final blow. Waves and rain overloaded the unstable volcano. The eastern flank, home to the Singing Stones, slid into the sea, triggering a chain reaction. The island fractured, the magma chamber ruptured, and Aurora collapsed beneath the waves. The legend of the heart of the island proved true in a way. The island's foundation failed, and the sea reclaimed it. In minutes, a world was lost. Scientists explored the seafloor, finding the shattered remains of auroria, forests, volcanic rock, and tangled roots scattered across the abyss. New deep-sea life was already colonizing the debris. The collapse had triggered a mega-tsunami, but its energy faded before reaching distant shores. The crater left behind was alive with hydrothermal vents, birthing a new ecosystem of tube worms and strange bacteria. In the place of a lost world, a new one was forming. The event became a case study in volcanic island collapse and deep-sea adaptation. Auroria's death had given rise to a new oasis in the ocean's depths. The cycle of destruction and creation continued. Even in loss, life found a way. Auroria's story is a warning. Land is not as permanent as it seems. The island's subtle warnings, silent stones, fading forests, were ignored until it was too late. Similar signs are visible worldwide: rising seas, dying reefs, melting glaciers. Auroria's extinction reminds us of the fragility of unique ecosystems and the urgency to protect biodiversity hotspots. The mega-tsunami it triggered is a wake-up call for coastal communities near unstable volcanic islands. By studying Auroria, scientists can better predict and prepare for future disasters. The loss of one island has provided knowledge that could save thousands of lives. We must heed nature's warnings before more wonders vanish. Auroria's fate is a lesson in humility and responsibility. The world's magic is fleeting. Protect it while you can. A year after its disappearance, Auroria lives on in memory, legend, and science. Its story is taught in universities, its data fueling new discoveries. The Aurorian vents on the seafloor bear its name, a lasting tribute. Artists and storytellers keep its magic alive, reminding us of nature's delicate balance. Auroria is now a symbol, a cautionary tale for our time. Its ghost whispers a final warning: cherish the wild places, for their wonders can vanish in an instant. The vanished island's legacy is a call to protect the fragile beauty of our world.